My biggest worry was that I didn't want to hurt anybody, you know, and telling my different stories through, I suppose, growing up, as well as my sporting journeys and some of the challenges I faced there. So just making sure that, you know, I was respectful.
And Rochelle, you've read it, so what was that like for you?
Reading it again, it was like, that's right, it like brought up lots of emotions and, oh, that's right, that happened. And some things, it's like I was learning Honey all over again.
Honey, the super athlete from Putaruru. She's one of our country's most decorated athletes and has represented us at the very top in 4 different sports. But how she got there wasn't straightforward. As a teenager, she was rough around the edges and was feared by many in her own community.
I was definitely, you know, labelled as a bully, and rightfully so, because, you know, I kind of went through a phase, and specifically my teenage years, where I just was angry at the world, you know, and I just took it out on other people, you know, and so I'd walk around town with my shoulders puffed up like I was this big tough honey, and, you know, I was gonna be this big tough guy that needed to put up this facade, if you like. I don't know what it was, but I think eventually I kind of grew out of it. It made me like, oh man, like, you know, people just don't like this version of me, I suppose. And I was like, I got quite upset about it. And so I just, I suppose, tried to make changes. She almost crosses past all the bigger players and goes and hits the biggest player on the field, you know. And
though she has retired from sports, Honey is now a key voice in both rugby union and league as a commentator. But also, she dedicates a lot of her time to important kaupapa. She works at Waikato Hospice and is often out and about raising money for cancer treatments. Her latest project is releasing her own book.
What's more nerve-wracking for you, going out in the field, playing in front of everyone, or putting your life story into this book?
Oh, yeah, good question. Probably have to say the book, because I suppose it just kind of reveals, you know, my whole life journey, whereas running out on a field is a bit different because I'm with, you know, a few other teammates, so it's not so bad. But yeah, this is all about me, so it's kind of, yeah, but a bit nervous but excited.
The book tells the story of Honey's incredible career, but also goes into some of the troubled times of her upbringing. She's open about her experiences of violence and alcohol in her household.
What kind of conversation did you have with your father about the book? Like, you know, you talk about vulnerable situations and revealing parts of your life.
Yeah. Yeah, those were probably the biggest conversations that I had to have with Dad. And as we were writing the book and I suppose remembering those parts of my childhood, I think it was, you know, a lot of it I'd just squashed down and not thought about for so long. And then when I had to actually talk about it, I was like, oh, I'm getting like really upset about this. And it was actually really quite raw, the first draft that we did. And I was like, you know, almost, I suppose, in detail was saying, you know, like there was obviously a lot of domestic violence, and I was almost like narrating it blow for blow, and I was like, oh, this is really harsh when I read it, and when I saw it in written form. And so initially when I got the first draft, I actually gave it to my brother, and I asked him to have a read of it. I wanted to get his perspective on it. And even he was like, oh, far out. So it made me remember a lot of, you know, our upbringing, and, you know, it made him quite emotional as well. And I think, and he said to me, I think, you know, you should probably have a kōrero with Dad. And so that's what I did. I actually ended up sending the draft to my dad and saying, look, Dad, I want you to have a read of this chapter. And again, you know, my dad's like, you know, been my rock in my life for so long. I didn't want him to be perceived as the bad person in my story. There was definitely bad parts about our upbringing. And he's not all to blame for that. I wasn't the best of kids in some sense, but yeah, so it definitely made me rethink, and I probably pulled back some of the stuff in order to, I suppose, just protect my whānau.
Do you feel like it was kind of healing though, like for you and your father and the whānau?
Yeah, I think when I left that day, I was like, oh, we hadn't had those conversations, and it was healing. It felt very healing, and, you know, we both left, you know, a lot more happier, and because he said, you know, it had been plain on his mind after I'd sent him the copy and he'd read it, and he was just, you know, and it was probably, you know, first time I'd seen my dad cry since maybe my mum's tangi when we had that kōrero at the cafe, and I was like, oh, he's, you know, and that's probably what I didn't want. I didn't want to upset anyone, so yeah, glad that I suppose we went through that process, and that the book, I suppose, forced us to go through that process.
Rochelle and Honey met through rugby and have been in love ever since. They married in hospital, a race against the time to ensure that Honey's mother, whose health was declining from her battle with cancer, could be a part of it.
It did bring up a lot of emotions, and just how we were able to pull it off in such a short time. And we always said, oh, we'll do that and then we'll have another wedding. But then it played out that it was exactly probably how we both wanted it. So, yeah. And I lost my mum to cancer too, so it brings up heaps of emotions, and we both, when I get to read that side of Honey's mum.
Yeah.
Now, years later, it's another wave of emotions. Rochelle is currently smashing the odds because she's alive. She has terminal cancer.
I think it's tough when you have to tell your family, especially your children. I think you always put on a brave face because you just don't want to see them hurt. But at the same time, you're preparing your kids to be strong men and being able to cope with challenges. So I think for us as a whānau, we've been able to, I suppose, walk alongside. My kids are young when my mum passed away, so she died of cancer, so they're able to experience that but not really understand. And they're a little bit older when Karen went through it, but we didn't get that much time. So I think with me and then being given the terminal illness, you almost felt like it was the same thing again, but then to see me 2.5 years on, it's a part of life. But if we can teach our boys to be able to cope through those struggles, then they just become better men, better people.
You know, although I suppose it's seen, you know, through social media and stuff, as I don't hide away from the lows as well, you know, because I don't want people to think, you know, that we're all good and we're this, you know, happy couple and everything's cruisy and we're fighting cancer and we're winning, because, you know, obviously, literally she just got out of hospital yesterday after a whole week admission through, you know, complication of chemo. So I want people to see the highs and the lows and the realness, like we don't hide away from that. And I think that's, for me, especially seeing Rochelle go through some of the really hard times, to me it speaks to her strength that she really has, to want to fight, to want to live. And we kind of, initially from the diagnosis, you know, we took the perspective of like, okay, yep, we understand there's no cure, we understand she's stage 4, but we're just going to live our best life and be really grateful for everything that we're given. And so we've done that, you know, we've been to Vegas, we've been to Hawaii, you know, we sort of thought like, you know, life's too short to wait. You know, we bought a property, and, you know.
It's been grandmothers.
Yeah, we got mokos now, which is cool. And
kids moving out.
Yeah, yes, and our sons are moving out. And, you know, so just really ensuring that we're living our best life with the time that we have left, but also ensuring that we embrace the good days. But then we, you know, very much, I suppose, go into our shell when we're struggling on the hard days.
The couple continue to live their best life. For Honey, she continues to excel in everything she puts her mind to, and she had a full circle moment returning back to where it all started, Putaruru.
I remember when I first made the New Zealand team and the rugby club asked me to come back and like have a corridor for their prize giving or something. So I was writing the speech and I like literally handwrote my speech, and I started with, I just want to apologise to everybody in this room that I either bullied or was like really mean to in my upbringing, or I don't know if I robbed you or stole from you or whatever I did, because I was just that kid, you know. And there's like, and it was the reaction that I got was a whole lot of laughs, and I was thinking that they were probably looking at me like, yeah, you little shit sort of thing. So, you know, it was nice that I suppose, you know, that a lot of people, I suppose, forgave that version and were, you know, happy to see my growth and see the changes that I made.